No. You were Chuck.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because they're bald. That's I used to get Vince Carolyn. Yes. You're living a rough retired life. Sitting here. You said it kind of comes to me. Looking for the quality.
I disown you.
Well, she probably saw you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't get it. I got no time.
Thank you for
Yes, those are awesome. Hey, buddy. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah, look at Helen. Good to see you.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel it.
Well, here, I'll be right here. What?
What's up, pal?
The gang. Oh, shit.
I thought they were
I'll see you. Extreme last name. Robert's daughter. You started wrong. You're wrong now. Yeah, yes, an material division like this. That was what you that was from the
So,
no, you did it then.
Does Kenny live here? Always once. You know.
so new? Didn't see him at
Just making sure. Now their phones are open and working, girls. Sherry. How are your sisters? They're all great. Everyone's getting
Alright. Thank you. What'd you say today? Playing cards. That's bad. Really? Really? You don't recognize Howard?
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh, how are you?
remember when you lived on Fullerton Parkway?
Yeah. No, that was a great house.
Yeah, we used to go.
Next to oh, not right.
Oh, wait, didn't you have this fancy photograph that cost a lot of money?
Yeah, cemetery.
Ansel Adams. Now it's
Well, when we saw the pictures, it was absolutely, so congratulations. It looked absolutely correct. This is my husband Bruce, who you probably have not seen since we were about 6.
yeah.
It was a great match. It did. Yes, it did. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, I don't know that very
How are you? I get to see
Sounds
you.
good to see you, Margaret. It's been so long. How are your sons?
Good. Both they are. Jacob didn't finish because he's on physical therapy 7 weeks.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah,
That's a
and,
great
and
profession.
Jacob, Matthew, he finished financial, they call, and he's going this year for master, and he's working at the company down there. So,
Oh, wonderful.
congratulations.
Yes.
With the jury on its
Wonderful. Yes. I'm so glad that our kids are all really succeeding. It's wonderful.
They are very good ones.
Yes. Good to see you. It's been so many years.
You know how time is.
But it was very similar.
Congratulations. This is Christy.
Nice to meet you. And congrats, thank you.
Bobby's black and cut.
And I made your best. You know, clean sheet is so important to Joanna. She's really like it. And so is Matt. I mean, boys was.
Fixated on. I'm not even going to tell you what I would do with my sheets in college.
Well, we're not in college
Frequency of
anymore.
cleaning.
We're fully adults.
Yeah, we
Who
are.
knows that?
Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask everybody to please, when you come up to the family, pass through as quickly as possible. The service is supposed to start in about 8 minutes, but we'll probably go a few minutes past that, but the cemetery has a deadline when we have to be there.
Fortunately,
And
give medicine. Don't come to county. Get out of your blood. Howard showing up.
It's my girlfriend Jess. Lisa Marvin, this is Andrea's brother and sister-in-law.
Andrew, where are you going to sit? Andrew, hold up the line. On that side. Go around.
So you're good. Good. Okay. And I have a lady there. Another one coming. Don't get in trouble by Phyllis. Can't be late.
Oh, yeah. No, right? No?
Ladies and gentlemen, again, would you please pass through the line as quickly as possible so everyone has a chance to get their condolences. If you're planning on going into Shiva in the next 3-4 days, of course you can pay your condolences at that time as well.
That road with the black and white, that lady in the black and white coat, is it possible to put in there? Well, I haven't seen in years, but I recognize it. I never forgot it. That's all right. That's good. Every day's a holiday. We got to live life. Every day's a holiday. Big daughter. She used to talk. Yeah. Well, she moved to Puerto too. She's going to move yeah, all the way
Right, let's go talk to John.
Oh, so that's okay. We raised
I'm sorry. From what is it?
yeah. Maybe. Yeah, probably. That sounds about right. Oh, there. Mark, where's Michael? Oh, okay. Oh, I see. How many seats do you have? How about Jerry? Do you have... You got enough for Jerry too? Thank you.
Thank God.
Yeah. You saved one for Alice too. What? We need another seat.
Got a lot of
Oh my God, we're telling their favorite babysitter says hello. Oh my God. Mrs. Wise, how are you?
Did you turn your phone off?
No, I think.
Oh, I did.
You won't be able to.
Yeah. Well, I always turn on
Yeah.
right after lunchtime.
Don't turn it off.
Here, give me mine. I'll turn mine.
But she lives over in the front. Yes.
Yes, I haven't seen it.
I'm in need of a friend.
Elliot,
Like mom.
I know. You're not the first person.
I know, and you sound like her.
Driving downtown is that it?
I did.
having a little offset here. Okay, fine. Yeah. It's the coloring. It's great.
Yeah, so we like to go down there. So we made a big No, he didn't want to. No, of course not. So we It's like in the video of the CRS. Where's Burl?
I'm all right now. Just go get.
Well, here, sit right on the end if you want. All right. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to begin the service in a couple more minutes, so please pass through the line as quickly as possible. Before we start the service, can I ask everyone to turn your cell phones to silent mode?
I saw you guys, so I wanted to say hello.
Again, would everybody please put your cell phones to silent mode?
I didn't get a program. What are you looking for?
So, immediate family members, I'm going to ask you to please stand. The way that we begin our service today is with an act called Kriya, which means to tear. And this is when we tear those ribbons that each one of you is wearing. And the reason why we do so is because it's an outward expression of how we're feeling on the inside, which is torn and separated. So we'll recite the blessing together, following which each one of you will tear the ribbon from the bottom upward. So first we'll recite that blessing. Please repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe with the judge of truth. Adonai natan Adonai lakaki b'shem Adonai barak. God is the one who gives. God is the one who receives. Blessed is the name of Adonai. Now please hear our readings.
Grab the bottom two corners and pull up on one. With two hands, grab the bottom two corners.
Oops, I ripped it off.
I'll give you another one later.
From the bottom. Oh no, very good. Yes, he is between
Ladies and gentlemen, Leonard Berlin was a proud member of the United States Air Force. And so before we start our service, we're going to have honors performed by members of the Air Force from Scott Air Force Base. When taps are played, please stand up. If you're a veteran, please salute. Otherwise, please place your hand over your heart, please. You may be seated.
On behalf of the President of the United States, the United States Air Force, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
The funeral service is going to be conducted by Rabbi Nate Crane and Cantor Pavel Reutemann.
Each generation faces moments of profound loss and sadness, seeking words of comfort. We find those words of comfort with loved ones, friends, and family. And within our tradition, we also turn toward our biblical textual tradition. And that's where we will begin today's service in honor of the beloved memory of Dr. Leonard. Hannah Royman will lead us in the Hebrew of the 23rd Psalm, following which we will join together in the English, which can be found on the inside of your memorial folders. We join together in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now I will lead us in a series of readings from our tradition, beginning with the book of Ecclesiastes. V'kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim, et la'ledet ve'et lamut, et l'ta'at ve'et la'akor natua, et la'harog ve'et lirpo, et lifrotz ve'et livnot, et livkot ve'et liskok, et svod ve'et rokot. To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to slay and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to cry and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time for solitude. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time to speak. From the book of Job. Talmid Chacham yimet mi mevi lanu tmurato. There is no replacing a person of wisdom. There are mines for silver and places where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from the rock. But where can wisdom be found? Where is the source of understanding? There is no replacing a person of wisdom. There's no replacing our dear Dr. Berlin. And now a prayer. Almighty God, whose mercies are from everlasting to everlasting, to you alone do your children turn for refuge in their affliction, for comfort from the grief that burdens the spirit, for peace from the sense of solitude and loss, and for strength of the soul in trouble. O you, divine comforter, who loves us with an everlasting love, and who turns the shadows of night into the cloudless day that dawns, help these mourners. As we read the words of promise of eternal life, let them be filled with hope that love dies not, that righteousness is mightier than the grave, and that the legacy of a Shem Tov, of a good name, is the most enduring memorial we can leave behind. Let this hour be for them a time of consecration, to resolve so to act that through their love and chesed, they may reflect upon him who was so dear to them in life. And together we say, Amen. We are gathered together with heads bowed low as a heartbroken group of family and friends to pay our final respects and a farewell to our beloved Dr. Leonard Berlin. As he was known to so many, especially dear family and friends, our dear Lenny. The loving son of the late Irving and Beatrice, adored husband of 69 years to Phyllis. Beloved father to Steve, Paul, Robert and Carolyn, and Jonathan and Tricia. Treasured grandfather to Stephanie, Brett, Juliana, Joshua, Courtney, Amanda, Madeline, Samantha, and Maddie, and fond brother of Dr. Howard and Norma. The person he was, as you all know, was brilliant, kind, caring, generous, dedicated, engaging, motivated, and loving. He was a pillar, a revered medical professional, and had a tremendous impact on the people and world around him. He was what we call a tzaddik, a righteous one. And as he's often been described, he was a mensch. Rabbi Shimon said there are three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty, but the crown of a Shem Tov, of a good name, supersedes them all. Given Lenny's tremendous accomplishments and boundless love, he forged many names for himself. And all of them were Tov, they're good. All of them are Tov Me'od. They are very good. Born in Chicago in 1935, his father had immigrated from Latvia as a teenager, and his mother was born in America. His father operated an independent grocery store near Wrigley Field, which Lenny worked in growing up. The proximity to the famous baseball stadium was a first step in a lifelong love of the Cubs and baseball in general, which he passed on to his sons. He went to Senn High School, where he was the editor of the high school newspaper. In 1944, he wrote a letter to Roosevelt, and FDR's office wrote back to him. He proudly held on to that response. There was a pharmacist he worked for one summer delivering drugs, and Lenny shared that he was considering being a pharmacist. The pharmacist's response had an enormous impact on Lenny. He said, "You don't want to be the pharmacist walking in the back door, you want to be the doctor walking in the front door." So the medical field it would be. Even though he was accepted to Northwestern, he chose to attend the University of Illinois at Navy Pier for pre-med. Those 3 years were so important to him, especially because he was chosen for a 4-year scholarship. And it was during his 3 years of pre-medical studies that he met and married his wife of 69 years and the mother of his 4 sons, Phyllis. They would go on to establish a life and family overflowing with love, care, and compassion. They were a true team in every sense of the word. Lenny's and Phyllis's engagement story was touching and involved a plate of chopped liver in which Lenny hid the engagement ring. And as we know, Lenny had a great sense of humor. After graduation, he entered the medical school of University of Illinois, became well known in the radiology department, and he was offered a residency spot there. However, he needed to find an internship, and he settled on St. Francis Hospital. At the time Lenny was completing his training, the war in Vietnam was ramping up. Faced with the choice between waiting to be drafted or volunteering for a 2-year commitment, he chose to volunteer, and he ended up spending 2 years at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. He was very proud of his military service, and his sons are very proud of his military service, as is the entire family. Lenny loved the United States for the land of opportunity it was for him. He was a patriot. While stationed in Dayton, he met a dear friend, Irv Waldman, and they were stationed together and published a paper for the medical journal. They were invited to the Radiological Society of North America conference here in Chicago. That's when he and Phyllis bought their house together in 1964. They moved to Wilmette at the end of March in 1965. When he returned from Dayton, they were initially at Loretta Hospital, and then he worked in a small practice in the Cost Building. And it was when Tony Pantone offered him a job at Skokie Valley Hospital in 1965 that he began his career there. and he spent his entire professional career at Skokie Valley. Tony Pantone was Lenny's mentor, and Tony was someone he adored and would often quote and even impersonate fondly. Eventually, Len became the head of radiology and built an entire practice. He took a risk and brought in the CT and MRI machines, which at that time was a huge risk, but it became very successful. It was for the betterment of the community. He was going to improve healthcare, and he did. Lenny was a man of principle, as his family so beautifully described to me. And he wanted everyone to keep their commitments no matter what. Even if you didn't feel like you were good enough, even if you didn't feel like you were interested enough, you were to keep your commitments. And those principles were brought in front of the world in the 1970s when someone brought a malpractice case against Lenny where he successfully countersued the patient and her lawyer for malicious prosecution after this frivolous claim. And following a successful court case, he was catapulted onto the national stage and became an instant celebrity. It changed his life because he became known as a leading expert on malpractice law, medical risk management, and physician advocacy, influencing the field for decades through articles, lectures, and peer reviews. It was the one event that was the most profound thing that happened to him. Born out of principle, he was not seeking monetary compensation, he wanted justice. And then he used the notoriety and experience to teach other doctors how to keep records, how to avoid fraudulent malpractice suits, and he would speak about this all over the world. He became one of the most famous doctors living. His fame was also enhanced by how prolific of a writer he was, including 400 articles, most of which were published in peer-reviewed journals, in addition to a definitive textbook, which would go on to have 3 editions. And his incredible professional success was accompanied by his kindness, his sweetness, and his care. He was respected as a physician, but he was also known as the nicest person and an incredible mentor. He was crucial to the people around him. A part of what made him so special was that he believed with his entirety that you always did what was right. He never forgot when others did the right thing, and he would thank them publicly and from the deepest recesses of his heart. And he worked until he couldn't work anymore. If he hadn't become ill, he would have worked until the end of his life because he loved it. And he found his identity was wrapped up in his professional life. And that hard work and that legacy lives on in all 4 of his children and their grandkids. It is in the family DNA. And Lenny's kids and grandkids were the pride and joy of his life, in addition to his beloved fellows. Every kid has a different relationship with him, and a huge part of everyone's lives sits their love and care for Lenny. And the grandchildren especially honor him with incredible love and adoration. For Lenny, having the whole family together meant everything. And here at Bethel El B'nai Emunah, Lenny was very involved. As the head of the men's club, the chairman of the education committee, and our community is eternally grateful for all of his efforts. And education was critical for him. So he and Phyllis put all the kids through college, and Robert and Steve through law school, and Jonathan through medical school. As I mentioned earlier, he loved telling jokes, and he loved people laughing at his jokes. He knew how to connect with people, and he knew how to connect with crowds. He had what we would call today high EQ, high emotional intelligence. He loved Broadway and musicals and would talk about them constantly, especially Irving Berlin, no relation, and Stephen Sondheim. Traveling was a passion of his and Phyllis's. They traveled all across the world with friends and for business as well. He lived a very big life. He enjoyed his life, and he did it his way. William Wordsworth wrote in The Excursion, "And when the stream which overflowed the soul was passed away, a consciousness remained that it had left, deposited upon the silent shore of memory, images and precious thoughts that shall not pass and cannot be destroyed." His good work on earth was interrupted, but not ended. You, his devoted family, bridged the chasm between what was and what will be by affirming love and life. Tzor b'tzor chaim, may his memory be bound to the bonds of life. May he be bound to each and every one of us for all of eternity. And may his memory be for an eternal blessing. Together we say, Amen. It's now that we will hear from a number of Lenny's family members, beginning with Steve.
So, how does one eulogize a man as accomplished and well-respected as my father, Lenny Berlin? I'll start by repeating what the rabbi said, but repeating it in my way, which is that he loved life. He loved every single minute of it. He loved it with enthusiasm and energy, so much energy that we used to call him Schmilkima. He was a magnanimous soul. I don't know that I ever saw my father once discouraged or even really anxious. His mind was so sharp, his intellect so fierce. He loved jokes. I do too, because we all got that from him. My running joke with my father about joke telling went like this. When I would hear a good one, I would immediately tell him. It was one of my prides, was to make my father laugh. And he would give me a little chuckle and say, that's pretty good, Steve, pretty good. And then he would go out and he would retell that joke with this inimitable comic timing, and it would cause uproarious laughter, which would cause him to uproariously laugh. And I was often in that audience with the uproarious laughter. He had impeccable comic timing. The fact is that he loved the attention, and he loved making people laugh, perhaps even more than laughing himself. But also he taught me and all of his sons the importance of doing the right thing, of hard work, of dedication, of sticking to commitments made. Two brief stories. As many of you know, if you didn't know, you know today, my father served proudly as a captain in the United States Air Force at Wright Pat in Dayton, Ohio, from 1963 to 1965. My brother Paul and I, perhaps Robert, we used to refer to it as Bacon, Ohio. His very service had a lasting legacy on his sons. It's no accident that his two attorney sons have spent the bulk of our careers in public service. So let's go back to 1964. The three of us, my father, my brother Paul, and I would go to McDonald's pretty much every weekend. It was the first time that we'd ever seen a McDonald's. It had not yet served 2 billion people. Paul and I used to refer to billions as balloons, so we thought they would give us balloons. But I remember the barrels of the orange soda and the root beer going around. And one afternoon, I was at the counter placing my order, and I looked down at my feet and I see a $5 bill on the floor. So I immediately tell my father, and his immediate reaction was, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go talk to the manager. So we did. And the manager said that if nobody had claimed the $5 bill within 24 hours, then it would be mine. Of course, nobody claimed the lost $5. Lesson learned forever. Do the right thing. So now flash forward to 1972/1973, my freshman year at New Trier. I tried out for the basketball team because I was tall, and I barely made the B team. And the fact is I was a truly awful basketball player. And I was put in only when our team was either ahead or behind by 20 points or more, so that I could not affect the outcome of the game. This was, simply put, no fun. We'd play on every Saturday morning, we would have practice, and then we would have a game. And my father would go to work on Saturday. He'd work pretty much every Saturday at the hospital, and he would come down to my room at about 7:20, and we would leave promptly at 7:30. Well, there was one Saturday where he comes down to my room at 7:20, and my bedroom was right near the garage. And I was still in bed, having decided to blow off that morning's practice and that morning's game. Well, he would have none of it. He said, "That's it, Stephen. You made a commitment, you put on your uniform, and you get dressed right now. Chop, chop." Love the expression chop, chop. Lesson learned. Later, in the 80s and the aughts and the 2010s, he regularly would call me at the office, ever eager to hear news of Mayor Daley or of Mayor Rahm Emanuel, with whom he and my mother, Phyllis, had a very warm relationship because we were neighbors. Do, Steve Arino. So what's the latest mishigas in the city? He would ask me, in that ever-joyous, curious voice of his. I especially liked it when every so often he would call me and say, "Steve, I'm trying to think of a word. I'm writing an article, and I wanted to say this, and I would want to say that." And I would give him, either sometimes on email, 3 or 4 suggestions, and he would appreciate it and sometimes actually use the words that I would suggest. And occasionally he would ask me to cut down a long sentence to about 1/3 of its length. My father was devoted to his 4 sons and his 8 grandkids, all of whom were his pride and joy. He recognized and celebrated each of their unique personalities and interests and supported them all, and they will all talk about that. But above all, he adored my mother. I mean, he adored my mother. In 1971, when Disney World was new, we took a family trip there, and we went to go see the Waldman family, the late Irv Waldman having been my father's partner at Wright Pat, and actually sort of like a 3rd uncle to us boys. One night at dinner, I asked my father, kind of whimsically, but I was a 12-year-old boy, so it wasn't that whimsical. I asked him, "Who's the most beautiful woman you've ever seen?" And I fully expected him to say something like, well, Faye Dunaway or Jill Clayburgh, one of the prominent actresses of the time. Without hesitation, my father said, "Well, your mother. Your mother is beautiful plus." Actually, that story is perhaps my favorite Lenny Berlin story of all. By the way, Dad, one of your other favorite stories was when you went to the old Turner Brothers clothing store, which was in Lincolnwood, to buy a suit for my bar mitzvah in 1972, which took place in this very sanctuary, probably standing right here. You paid around $300, which would be like buying about an $1,800 suit today. And you told Mr. Adler, the tailor, "Mr. Adler, for this money, the suit had better fit perfectly." And the tailor responded, "Doctor, the only time the suit's going to fit perfectly is when you're in the coffin." That's my father's humor. Well, Dad, I gotta say, you're pretty well dressed, and you're ready for whatever challenges eternity is going to throw at you. This is a man who never forgot his humble origins. As well known as he became. He leaves us many wonderful legacies. I'll just finish by saying, Dad, I hope you realized how much you were respected and loved, and that you appreciated the deep, lasting impact that you had on literally thousands of people, colleagues, mentees, medical students, patients, friends, and family. I will ever miss you, and I am forever grateful that you were my father.
We're now joined by Robert.
Tough act to follow. I'm going to try and capture the essence of my dad in just a few paragraphs. Without repeating everything, but some things have to be repeated because he was an incredible dad, an incredible grandfather, an incredible husband, a teacher, a mentor, and really an icon in the field of radiology. You heard a little bit about the lawsuit that was filed back in the early 70s. And that lawsuit ultimately really defined my dad's professional career. It was filed not for money. Originally, he only wanted to ask for $1. And his attorney said, you got to ask for something more. And the jury awarded $8,000 total. But as the rabbi stated, after that verdict, it was the first time that a doctor had successfully countersued an attorney. And it made national news. It was in Time magazine. It really catapulted him onto the national stage. And I remember the trial because I took a week off of school. I was in 8th grade at the time, in front of Judge David Cannell down at the Daly Center. And what I remember is the defendant's attorneys constantly asking for a sidebar when Judge Cannell would say, "Counsel, we don't serve drinks here." Well, after the trial, and my dad got thrust onto the national stage, what happened afterwards really illustrates who my dad was. Because there was no grandstanding, no gloating. He used that fame to teach other doctors on how to avoid malpractice claims. He authored and published so many different articles and books and lectured radiologists all over the country. Became a leader in the field. While all that was happening, he did remain very involved in his kids' and his grandkids' lives. Nothing was more important to him than family. The vacations, the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries. My dad would always treasure having the family together. And the rabbi talked about how his DNA it's in his 4 boys. I put on WBBM News Radio every single morning. I read 3 different newspapers and get up at 5 in the morning just so I can read those newspapers. Because that's what my dad did. Many emails, social media posts have come in. I know my brother Jonathan is going to talk about that. But one of them I just have to share with you. Because one of the radiologists said he was a giant indeed, and a kind giant at that. Lenny's many contributions will live on in many of us who have been privileged to have been taken under his wings. He really did have a profound impact on the medical field, and it was about helping patients and helping the community and helping improving the delivery of health care. For him, that's what it was all about. He was always in a hurry. He had to be efficient with life. The drive from our house in Wilmette to the hospital was about 5 minutes, and it would have been 5.5 if my dad didn't figure out there's a triangle intersection where Ridge and Crawford and Grosse Pointe Road meet each other. And my dad figured out that if you went around the hot dog island when the light was green, that the second light would turn greener quicker, and he saved about 30 seconds. And over time, that adds up, but that was more time that he could be at work or be with his family. He was, I'll share one thing. I pitched through high school and college, and I remember 1981 when he came out to Pennsylvania, and we were playing at Gettysburg College. And that, in my life, in my opinion, that was the real battle at Gettysburg. It was a close game until the 4th inning, and our shortstop made an error, which brought in a couple runs. Then the bases were loaded, and then on an 0-2 pitch, I grooved one to their best hitter, and he cleared the bases. And I remember looking over at the coach, after 7 runs were in, but he knew my parents had traveled all the way from Wilmette and he wasn't going to take me out. And we ended up coming back. We lost that game, but we came back to win the second game in the doubleheader. And my parents stayed for the whole game, and he was happy that the team won the second game, and that's what it was all about. And that's my dad. He used to take us to baseball games every year. We used to go to the Cub games. We also went to the White Sox games, and he taught us how to keep score. You'd always get a program and keep score at the games. But my dad was very humble and always believed in doing the right thing. And he taught us how to respect the game and how to respect your supervisors, your coaches, and respect authority. And you learned that if you hit a home run, you put your head down and you rounded the bases. There was no fist pumping, no bat flipping, no pounding the chest like you see with some of our players in Major League Baseball today. That's not what my dad was about, and that's not what my brothers and I are about. That's how my dad lived life. He was old school, and I say that in the most complimentary way. It's because of him that I still have a flip phone. It's because of my dad that up until COVID, I was one of the only people in the office that still got a paper check every 2 weeks. But then when COVID hit and the banks were closed, I finally had to get the electronic check. My dad lived a full life, and the fact that so many of you are here today shows the impact that he had on so many people. And the one thing that we can all do is learn what he taught us and continue to live our lives the way that he would have wanted to.
Thank you, Reverend. Next, we're joined by John.
Despite all his achievements, my father was in essence an uncomplicated, practical, and moral man who knew intuitively one of the key secrets to happiness: nurturing relationships and not taking things or people for granted. When I was a kid, I would often ride with him to visit his late mother Bee, and he would put on the old-time radio show. And we would talk before taking Grandma to lunch, usually at the House of Pies or at Denny's. He told me sometimes he wished he had grown up in the intimacy of a small town where everybody knew each other. He was that kind of a person, compassionate, empathetic, and always looking to connect with people. A man who walked alongside me in Santorini during a family trip, dodging, mostly unsuccessfully, loads of donkey poop. Because as a kid, I was too scared to ride the donkey down, but never making me feel bad about it. By the way, as Tricia can attest to, I redeemed myself on a second trip to Santorini years later by eventually riding the donkey. My father had intuitive emotional intelligence. When I was upset, he knew it from the second I said hi. He used to say, "Jay, I know you like a book. There's something bothering you." And we would hash it out. Those of you who know me would agree that at times, maybe more frequently, I can be anxious. And my father used to say jokingly, my middle initial W stood for worry instead of William. But somehow my dad would find a path to make everything feel okay again. His 1976 countersuit gave him fame, including TV appearances and a picture in Time magazine. But enthusiasm and passion for organized radiology in the intersection of medicine and law is what defined him professionally. To author his early malpractice and Cook County articles, he cut each printed jury verdict report or lawsuit description into individual pieces and painstakingly, by himself for the first article, and for the second, the two of us categorized them together. He was so proud of his children and grandchildren, and I admired him so much for how wonderful that love made them and me feel. A quote attributed to Oscar Wilde is, Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. My dad and mom set a wonderful example of a loving and successful marriage for 69 years. And my father is a guiding force and role model for me in so many other ways as well. When an early radiology article of mine was published, the editor wrote in the journal introduction, "The apple does not fall far from the tree." I was so embarrassed and thought to myself, now I am an official Nepo baby. But my dad was so proud. He loved to introduce me to people in meetings or at the hospital. He would say, "Jay, there is so-and-so, let's go introduce you." And again, I was so embarrassed. But he was so proud. You guys get the theme here? He had hoped I would apply for fellowship in the American College of Radiology the same year that he was awarded the gold medal. But I said I wanted to wait a year to carve my own path. Then again, he was so proud the following year when he got to see me earn the fellowship. His transparent love was contagious in building independence and character for his children and grandchildren. And now, I find his spirit channeling itself in me. He used to say during happy events, "Jay, remember this moment, treasure it and appreciate it." And now I give my kids the same advice. Even though, like I used to react to my father, their response to me is embarrassment often, manifesting as, "Please, Dad, not another family TED Talk." My father knew how to get things done. He did not hesitate. He recognized the potential of CT and MRI early, and when he couldn't find support, worked to spearhead local installation, despite significant financial and professional risk to him at the time. He couldn't predict his eventual success, but took the chance because he believed in modern imaging's value to patients. It is said people can be categorized into givers and takers, and Dad was a giver. When Alzheimer's disease cruelly, methodically, and without any mercy took all of his abilities in the final years of his life, his overall impact, in spite of the Alzheimer's, on his family and profession was enormous, evident by the fact that before the end stages of his disease, my mom hosted his birthday party for our immediate family, and every member in attendance could so easily recall how he contributed to their growth and success uniquely and as individuals. His impact is also evident by the vast number of healthcare professionals, attorneys, and others who knew him professionally that have reached out to me during these few days, people from all over the country, some from all over the world, to offer condolence and support since his passing and share stories of his significance to them. And prior to his passing, have told me over the years how much they admired him. In a note he wrote his family concerning his last wishes, my father said the following: "May my family and friends share love among themselves, and as well remember me with love. Farewell, your father, grandfather, husband, brother, relative, friend, and colleague, Lenny. Goodbye, Dad. I love you, and you will live on in our hearts and inspire me, the next generation, and so many colleagues and friends, through your ongoing wisdom, love, and gratitude for the miracle of life."
Thank you, Jonathan. Next, we'll hear from the grandchildren, beginning with Juliana and Madeline.
We are deeply saddened by the passing of our grandfather. Lenny was such a special, funny, and creative person. Some people might be confused when we say that our grandfather was creative. After all, he was a radiologist. But he was also a gifted writer, speaker, and scholar. When going through some of his things recently, Juliana noticed and appreciated that he opened lectures with literary quotes and references to his favorite musicals.
Our grandfather believed deeply in education and hard work, and he wanted his family to believe in what we do just as he did. It's rare to find someone who found such real meaning in their work, and he was always so supportive of our professional goals. Even after retiring, Papa Lenny never stopped studying, writing, or lecturing. He accomplished what he wanted to accomplish in life, and I found his love of learning so inspiring. I'm especially honored to share the title Dr. Berlin with him, as this connection will always remind me of him and his legacy.
He and Grandma were avid theater goers and loved to spend summers attending the Stratford Festival. They saw lots of Broadway shows, which they imparted on us. Papa loved musicals, and Sondheim most of all. His enthusiasm for theater and the arts was infectious. On one childhood trip to New York, he took us to see one of the only performances ever of Spider-Man the Musical on Broadway. During the big opening number, the show had to pause due to technical issues, and one of the actresses was suspended in the air. As the curtain hung awkwardly, Papa leaned over to us, smiled, and laughed, and he said, "This really is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of show." He even had his own movie rating system, the UGH scale, where multiple UGHs were rare and reserved for only the best.
Papa also showed his quiet side with us. He always greeted us with a warm hug and a cheerful, "Hello, angels," before heading back to his office to work. He had such a great sense of humor, and he didn't take himself too seriously. He was ingenious in small and makeshift ways that always made us laugh, like wearing a paper plate as a hat when he forgot his own. When he, Madeline, my dad, and Grandma Phyllis were having breakfast before my college graduation, he stuffed some bananas in his hat and he carried them around like a purse. Madeline and my dad insisted that he would have snacks, but he didn't care. They laughed and he facetiously went, "It's okay, you can laugh." He didn't mind looking silly.
He loved the simple pleasures, a chocolate chip walnut cookie at the Doubletree Hotel in New York, or a very short line. Most of all, savoring the frosting on a piece of cake, always saving it for last, a true Berlin family trait. Anytime he noticed one of the grandkids doing something like him, he'd grin and say, "It's in the genes."
Papa Lenny was a scholar, a humorist, a lover of the arts, and above all, our biggest supporter. I'll think of him whenever I read a well-done scholarly article for work or when I save the frosting for last.
Thank you. Next, we're joined by Stephanie and Brett.
Hello, everyone. So mindset and perspective are everything, and today I want to honor Papa Lenny with gratitude, grief, admiration, and celebration of his life. When my parents divorced, my brother, 2, I was 4, we lived down the street from my grandparents. And we lived down the street from the same house that they raised their 4 boys in. And whenever things became untethered in our home, their home was a safe haven, and our relationship with them bordered on children, grandchildren. They both just took immense, lovely care of us. And at the same time, I grew up watching my grandfather's voice at work, whether he was speaking about radiology around the world or leading a Seder at home. His words carried weight, warmth, and clarity. Public speaking has always come naturally to me, and I know that is in no small part because of him. And of course, there was the way he always spoke about my grandmother, who was not just his wife, but also as his lover. That one word taught me volumes about devotion, respect, and joy in a partnership. It's why I proudly do the same when I speak about Jessica, my lover. Papa Lenny leaves behind not only a brilliant career, but also family that carries his voice, his love, and spirit forward. I am so lucky that I got all 37 years with Papa Lenny.
Well done. It's pretty amazing to see how many people are in attendance today. It's so evident how loved my grandfather was and how he touched so many lives. My sister and I, as she alluded to, have always had a unique relationship with both our grandparents. We grew up in the same street that they lived, raised my dad and uncles, so we tended to see them a lot. You know, I'll always cherish my grandfather and grandmother and how they used to take us on family trips. I would constantly push my grandfather's limits until he lost his temper. It didn't take much, but I really knew how to grind his gears. And he had a short temper, and he vowed to my grandma he'd never take us away again. But then again, the next year, we would all be on that family trip again. You know, I also vividly remember coming back to our family events that Papa had always had his camera around, whether it was still photography or his video camera. He'd always go up to us grandkids, asking us to say a little something, which usually was just hi camera. What feels like just a few years ago, sadly is over 30 years ago, but I'll always cherish those memories. Papa, thank you for all the memories and instilling in me the many foundations of the person I am today. I will always keep you close by. Rest easy, Papa, I love you.
Next, we'll hear from Courtney and Amanda.
Papa Lenny. When Amanda and I think of our Papa, the first memories that come to mind are from our childhood. Growing up, he was simply the best. He let us stay up late, even when Grandma said it was bedtime. He let us have 2 desserts, even when Grandma said we had too much sugar. And he didn't mind when we overflowed Grandma's bathtub with bubbles and our favorite Elmo toys. He was always there to clean up our mess. Every Passover, we managed to convince him to raise the afikomen board by telling him the price of bubble gum at the hardware store had gone up. And then there was the time he drove us to Hebrew school. Let's just say Papa may have accidentally taught us a swear word or 2. At least that's what my mom tells herself. It was him and not her who taught us the F word. Ah, shit, fuck, Phyllis, we're gonna be late. I don't know where we are. Shit, we're gonna be late. My dad made this joke this morning. Those moments capture the joy and silliness he brought into our childhood. Papa also inspired us to be adventurous. He took us on family trips, the most memorable being our trip to Israel. Cousin Steph, Brett, and I stuffed our water bottles into Grandma and Papa's hoods, walking the streets of Israel. We'd laugh at every corner as they leaned back, wondering what was so heavy in their hood. Juliana, Madeline, Amanda, and I overdosed on Benadryl one night, laughing in our hotel room, watching TV in Hebrew after having an allergic reaction to the hotel's saltwater pool. And who could forget Amanda screaming across the hotel room, "Mom, I'll have a ham, cheese, and bacon omelet." How kosher. Papa Lenny, we thank you for the memories that continue to make us laugh. Now, as many of you know, Papa was a well-respected radiologist who influenced not only his patients and colleagues, but the broader medical legal community. He held himself to the highest standards of professionalism, and his integrity and wisdom left a lasting mark. His legacy led me to the Clifford Law offices where I now practice alongside partners that he too once worked with. I remember standing outside the Chicago Theater at my law school graduation. He reminded me to continue to work hard each and every day I showed up for work. He said, "Courtney, you have a real person job now. One that pays rent, but most importantly, a job that allows you to do good for others." One of Papa's textbooks sits on a shelf in my office today and reminds me daily of his words and his example, to keep working hard and to keep doing good for others. Papa also passed on his charisma and gift for communications, qualities that shine through Amanda. Papa could connect with anyone. That same ability to communicate with warmth and confidence has shaped Amanda's career. Today, she's the youngest senior account executive at her ad agency, and we know Papa's influence, his presence, his humor, and his way with people helped guide her to that success.
I'll share just one thing, because in true older sister fashion, Courtney's always been better at holding it together than I am. This week I had to be in New York for work. When I got the news about Papa, my first instinct was to cancel. But it was my dad who reminded me that Papa would have wanted nothing more than to see me keep moving forward, doing what I love, just like he always did. I was walking to the World Trade Center to catch the train, and I happened to pass by the 9/11 museum. In that moment, I was taken back to a trip that Grandma and Grandpa took us on. It hit me like a wave. Papa isn't just in our hearts, he's in the places we've been, the stories we carry, and the legacy he built with quiet strength and endless love. Even far away from home, I could feel it. That was Papa, always present, always watching, always leaving his mark, not just on us, but on the world around him.
Through it all, Papa taught us the value of family, the strength of dedication, and the importance of finding joy even in the simple things. We love you, Papa.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Sammy and Maddie.
I remember when I was in first grade, Papa Lenny took us to Israel for the first time. I was so happy to go, but like any other 7-year-old, I did not like the plane ride. Papa's grandfatherly instinct was to calm me down and get me excited. For the trip, I made a diary of all the sites I wanted to visit and drew drawings with them. And I remember very clearly that Papa was interested in it, and he told me that something that I will remember for the rest of my life. Artists signed their names on the bottom right of their work, as he was referring to the pages in my diary that I had signed only with my initials. This compassion was the true nature of Papa, always caring and loving, from when he would host the Seder with joy and enthusiasm, to the times he would measure my height on the kitchen counter and call me his angel. I'll miss you so much. I love you, Papa. Sammy.
I don't remember much of Papa Lenny before he got sick, but I do have a few memories of him, and I will always remember how much he loved me. One memory I have is of Papa playing soccer in the basement with me. When I was little, for many Friday evenings, we'd go to my grandparents' house, and I would play soccer with him. Now, I play and practice soccer on a club's team multiple times a week, but he was the one who introduced me to the sport and started my love for it. There are many memories that I don't remember, but I have photos in my family to remind me of. For example, he took me to Israel, and while I don't remember most of that trip, I will always know that he took me to Israel for the first time, and I will have photos to remind me. Losing him was really hard. I never got to meet my other grandfather, so he was the only grandpa I ever got to make memories with. But I'm happy he's not in pain anymore, and I know he will live on through my grandma, uncles, cousins, my dad, my sister, and me.
It's at this time that I invite us to rise for our Kelmaleh prayer, prayer in which we petition for souls bound to the bonds of everlasting
שכלך לעולמו, וגן עדן כמנוחתו, הנבא לרחמים, אז תלך בסדר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen.
Kelmaleh Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence, among the holy and pure to the soul of our dear Dr. Leonard Berlin. It's gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We may be seated.
name's Lloyd Mandel, and I normally don't make a little comment before we end, but 36 years ago I had started the first new Jewish funeral business in Chicago in over 50 years. And a friend of mine's father was very ill and was passing. And up until that point, Beth Hillel had only allowed 2 funerals to ever be held here. It was only for people that had been past presidents. But I called Rabbi Lincoln, who had gone to New York, and I called Anna Mandel and a few other people. And Billy Shore, at age 52, passed away, and his funeral was here 36 years ago, 430 months ago. And your father, who my family has known your family all my life, this may be the last funeral that will be here in the sanctuary, and it's just very fitting that such a pillar of the synagogue and of the community be here. My father's funeral here was last year. I was very honored to be here, and it makes me very sad to think that this facility is not going to be here much longer for people like your father. But in any event, the interment's going to take place at West Lawn Cemetery. That's in Norridge, Illinois, and we're supposed to be there in 13 minutes. Obviously, we're not going to make it. I did print maps, and I think it would be best if everybody would please take the maps. They're out there. It tells you what section to go to, and if you would all just head on your own, just the family and the hearse will go in a procession, maybe 1 or 2 family cars, but I think it'll be better for everybody, and time-wise and safety-wise, if everybody just goes on their own, and the family then will follow the hearse. The Shiva information's in the pamphlets that you've handed out, but it is at the Berlin residence in Wilmette, 518 Meadow Drive, and it'll be when we get back from the cemetery until 9 o'clock tonight, and Monday through Wednesday night from 6 to 9. The following have been asked to act as pallbearers, and it will be Jeffrey Berlin, Brett Berlin, Joshua O'Neill, Michael Racenstein, Mark Edelman, and Frank Miller. At this time, if everybody would please rise, and if the pallbearers would please come forward. Yeah, next slide, please.